Welcome into AZ Audibles. I'm Haley Stasiak alongside Eric Sorensen and Jordan Ham. The big news this week is Conrad Hamilton heading back to Chaparral. He was on Todd Graham's staff this past season, did a lot of recruiting locally, big with that, and now he's going to be the executive head coach at Chap alongside Thomas Lewis. What are we going to see from him and the impact he's going to have on the Firebirds this year?
Well, it's a familiar face coming back to Chaparral. He led the team for a few years prior to leaving ASU, and now this staff has 3 coaches who were head coaches at one time. You have Thomas Lewis, Conrad, and then the offensive coordinator, Chris Heavner. So plenty of experience there, and for Conrad, it's going to be an interesting season, and he's definitely going to have some young guys to work with. A lot of players from this defense have moved on, so it's going to be a young defense that he's going to be able to make some impressions on early in their careers.
Jordan, I think the key word is familiarity. When you go from college back to high school, for someone like that to just, it's almost going to be seamless because he's familiar with everything around the Chaparral program. He was 18-7 in his 2 seasons as head coach. Last year, Chap was 5-7. They hadn't had a losing season in probably almost 2 decades. Look for a big bounce back in 2017.
Coach Hamilton's probably going to put a pretty heavy focus on their defensive line over there at Chaparral. What are some other defensive lines and offensive lines that we're going to see solid this year in 2017?
Let's go out to Horizon and look at their offensive line. The Huskies have had some big-time players come through there. When you look at Jake Grant, who's now at Utah, Luke Rudolph at NAU, a couple 6'4" players that are going to be big-time prospects, already are, according to Jason Jewell. One of those is Isaiah Mercelot, 6'4", 280 pounds. The other is Justin Segura, also 6'4", a little bit lighter at 245 pounds. Very versatile. They both play on both sides of the ball. And I think the Huskies are really going to be dominant up front coming up in 2017.
I'm keeping my eye on Desert Edge's offensive line. They've got some big guys that have stayed on that line since they were sophomores, and they've got the experience, notably Max Wilhite, Tyson Jones, who's also excelling in track and field, and Austin Young. They've had that experience of playing not only for a while, but together for a while, and Jose Lucero is back as head coach, and he worked pretty closely with them. They'll definitely be a force to be reckoned with.
I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, the defensive line for Mountain Point. I mean, we saw them just excel so much over like the past decade. You know, Norris Vaughn, he just knows how to build those. But specifically this past year, Matthew Polomau, Shamari Hayes, those are 2 guys that are coming back. It's just a bunch of big dudes who know how to move people. They really set the tone for that talented secondary and the rest of the defense for Mountain Point, and really kind of fits their aura of the Pride.
The AIA elected David Hines as the new executive director this past week. He'll take over in July. If you had a wish list of things you would like to see changed in Arizona high school football, what would be on it?
This might be pie in the sky, but I'd really like to see the slightly lower tiered schools play the really, really big powers. Who wouldn't want to see Saguaro against Chandler last year, or undefeated Williamsfield take on the Wolves? Again, it probably isn't going to happen, but you see a lot of chatter on social media, some trash talking going back and forth between some of these players about what would happen if the upper tier programs played one another. Another thing I'd love to see changed is an increase in the quarter time from 12 minutes to 14 minutes. Jordan, you mentioned Mountain Point. So many times last year when you're playing against schools like Mountain Point and Centennial that run the ball, if you're a team trying to come back in the 4th quarter and some of these power run-heavy offenses get the ball, you don't see comebacks. The 4th quarter is just, it's not uncommon to see these schools go on 7-8 minute drives, and I wouldn't mind seeing an extra 2 minutes per quarter.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think that the quarter length is perfect. You know, when you look at this, usually 7 p.m. game, that's going to wrap up about 9:30, 9:45. If there's a lot of scoring, even 10 o'clock, that means these games are consistently getting pushed back to about 10:30. Also, if it's a run-heavy team, they're at a disadvantage if they fall behind early. So it's kind of pick your poison. And if there's a defense that needs to stop a run-heavy team from eating up 6-7 minutes, you got to stop them. You know, that's not a fault of the game, it's a fault of their defense.
I agree with you, though, on those teams playing each other. How incredible would it be for Chandler to play a Saguaro and see that talent level? There's so much talent here in the Valley and across the state. To see those teams kind of play each other would be very interesting for me.
For me, I don't have a solution here, but it seems like every couple of years we just always hear about realignment issues and how the criteria, there are outliers, and you know the criteria that's in place will put a team that's struggling up to a higher division and things like that. Again, I'm not sure how you fix that problem, but I think that does need to be addressed moving forward in the AIA.
That's what we've got for you this week on AZ Audibles. Be sure to check out Eric's zone read and more of our high school football content on sports360az.com. We'll see you next week.